Welcome back to the Movie World Marathon. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Mac.
And we're
Woo.
working our way through our 80s marathon. I'm loving it so
hmm
far. We are on, this is the third
hmm
movie in this marathon so far?
Yeah,
Yes, we
because
are on,
E.T. and then Red Dawn and now.
yes, we're on The Breakfast Club. Came out February 15th, 1985. Directed by John Hughes. Starring Molly Ringwald as Claire, Anthony Michael Hall as Brian, Jude Nelson as Bender, Emilio Estevez as Andrew, and Ali Sheedy as
hmm
Allison, and then Paul Gleason as Richard Vernon, and John Kepelos as Carl. So yeah, not a huge cast. It's
Yeah.
nice.
It's kind of what the whole movie rests on,
Yeah,
honestly.
what a wonderfully weird little movie.
Yeah,
Oh, we don't like
I
it.
I've seen it before, and I
Yeah.
thought maybe High School Me was just being like an idiot
Mm-hmm.
when she didn't like it.
No. But
I
no.
kind of think no, that she was onto something.
No.
Because like, here's the deal: I see what it's trying to do. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it pulls it off. And I think
Mm.
people love it for what it's trying to do, but they fail to recognize why it doesn't pull it off. And that's going to
I
irritate me.
yeah, I think it is it's close enough that I enjoy it. It
hmm
does I like at the end of the day there's like three things about this movie I don't like. And they are significant. um but like as a whole, I I do think there's something here, and like while watching it, I was like, I don't
Okay.
think I'm smart enough to really articulate what's here, because
hmm
there is something, and we'll try to get into it, but like there's plenty to complain about, and I think this is like one of those. We said something similar with John Wick, and that I feel like a this is categorized as like a fun 80s movie, and it's like
hmm
in that same boat, but it's trying to be artsy. Like that might I'm
For
also
sure.
I'm not using artsy in like a derogatory word. Like it's trying to say
Yeah.
something,
It
but I
has some
think
sort of message they're
yeah,
projecting to their audience.
yeah, but I
But they also don't want to be preachy about it. And I
yeah,
think that ends up working against them,
a little,
kind of.
a little. I do. I upon this
I
rewatch,
I
I've
do understand the struggle though, because like
yeah,
hold on, like the main issue is that they want to relate the sense that we are all people figuring things out, especially teenagers, right? They're
mm-hmm,
just figuring things out. The essay they can't write is would lock them into some sort of identity, and the whole point of the film is we can't do that because we don't know yet, or maybe that just would never fit us to begin with. And that's a really cool idea, but they also want to show that using sort of like very quote unquote realistic, grounded
mm-hmm,
human interactions, I think
mm-hmm.
is kind of the goal. Um, and to me, the whole thing still feels very scripted. And it fails to reach a level of honesty where I would believe where all the characters are that buddy buddy
Really.
with each other.
See, I
Yes.
was almost thinking the opposite watching it. I felt like there was a real sense of authenticity to it. Like it's a movie, it's written, but
hmm
I thinking of movies like this, like the high school setting, the teenager everything. Other than some things about Bender, I feel like it's really restrained, and like I think it adds to a level of believability to it, because there are other movies that explore this where Brian has glasses with tape in the middle of it, and
Sure.
like Andrew shows up
It would be a
with
big football
yeah, he'd
guy
show up
with
with a
yeah.
football. Like I mean, Claire having
Mhm.
sushi and that little sushi table, yeah, that's a bit much for sure. But like the amount of kids I knew who were way weirder than Allison, like
Yeah.
oh my god,
Mhm.
like I honestly I appreciate the level of like Bender is an asshole. They all are, and they get into
Mhm.
that. But like
Mhm.
the kind of picking on Brian, the kind of bullying that Bender does, is so much more believable. He's not giving him wedgies. He's not, full on assaulting him, shoving him in lockers. He's picking on him. He's picking on him in ways where Brian can't even tell because he's kind of naive about it. But he also, I really liked this weird camaraderie that is there really early on, even with Brian, even though they're making fun of him. Like, there's little things that I see in movies that for some reason I really like, because it's this weird sense of inclusion that you don't see in real life a lot. Like the fact that Bender throws Allison a Coke and brings Brian his, yeah, we're picking on him. Yes, we're making fun of him. But like, I don't know. And I'm already having trouble articulating it because I know I'm going to start rambling. But there's something
maybe
about...
we should start kind of at the beginning and see if we can work our way to it. Yeah. Because I think like what I'm seeing in the film, word blubber. What I'm seeing in the film is very similar, I think, to what you're seeing in the film, but our takes are ending up quite different. So I'm wondering how we're getting there. So start from the beginning. We start with a manifesto, which is telling us exactly where the film is going. And I'm kind of torn on that choice, honestly. How are you feeling? Like, for me, it's just like, it's like that's a bit preachy for what the film is trying to be. But at the same time, it's telling us exactly what to look for in these very intentional early scenes.
But
so
I like that because one of the characters has that issue. I like the clips of around the school because you don't know what they are yet. You don't know what that locker that's blown up is. And if you have that manifesto and you hear that one of them's a criminal, you assume what that is. And then you find out later that you were wrong if you assume that was Bender, because it wasn't. That was Brian. And in that clip, we see Carl and his like plaque where he was Man of the Year in something. And so you get to think about, like, the movie is saying nothing bad about Carl being a janitor, but it is offering that up and asking you to think about it. So
he's very, very simply portrayed as the character that knows the most about what's going on in the school and handles it well, whereas all the other characters are struggling mightily with their identities.
He's quite literally the Umbrella Academy meme before the Umbrella Academy meme. Daddy issues, chaos junkie, mommy issues, more daddy issues, obnoxious asshole issues, and you seem weirdly self-actualized, actually. Anyway, like, that's all of these guys right here, you know? So
you can make a really nice, like, run or edit of these characters.
Yes, all of them, easily, 100%. So I actually like the opening. I like that it sets not the expectations, but expectations, and it puts you in the position of...
That's a good point.
You almost... I think you start from the same place as...
for me to pick up on.
That's all right. But like you almost start from the same place as the teacher. What's his name? Richard Dick Vernon.
Yeah.
That's a small complaint I have. Not a huge one. It's just he's almost cartoonishly evil. I think, and I appreciate the moment between him and Carl later in the movie where it's like it's not even subtle to other characters that Vernon's the issue, but to act the way he does, being aware of why all of them are there, like it's too cartoonish. You know, if he was more reasonable and treated Andrew and Claire and Brian differently because the school treats them differently, and like if he disregards Brian, he picks on Brian. And, like, you could maybe include that. But, like, he's also an ass to Andrew, and he's an ass to Claire. But then that moment with him... I'm sorry, I'm already bouncing around. You want me to stop? I'm rolling all over the place.
I mean, with Vernon, I do think he kind of sets the tone a little bit in the beginning of this film, right? Like, if we want to kind of bring it back to, all the characters get introduced, and we get very clear caricatures of, like, who they are and what we kind of get of their home life, right? Including even kind of the absence of that with Allison and Bender. And, Allison gets driven to school, but we don't even get to see the inside of the car. All the other characters so far, we've seen in the car as they get out of the car. We get nothing from her. And then, Bender shows up almost at the same time, and he just walked, apparently, which I find interesting because students in that position, when they don't have a way to get to school, don't often show up for this sort of thing in the modern day, at least. But anyway, um, yeah, it's almost like he wants to be there. Um, mhm,
That's exactly what he's doing,
mhm,
though. That's why he does the
mhm.
multiple detention thing. That's the only reason. Like, and
Yeah.
that's not me picking up on it. When I watched this the first time, I really did like it. I read all of the IMDb trivia, and it's been a while,
Mhm.
but I think that was something I read that was intentional because of how abusive his household is he wants to be out of it. And like Allison is doing
Okay.
something, but like for a different reason. Like it's not because he's
Mhm.
required. Like, and that's you also don't. I don't think you have to read the IMDb thing to know that he talks about how abusive his
Mm-mm.
household is. So he's looking for the one thing where he can go and not be there. And that's what I was gonna say with the Vernon thing is how awful that is, where he's threatening Bender and he's trying to fight him.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, Bender's a piece of shit, but I'm not a teacher. I know
Mhm.
that's not how you act ever, and that's why I think if we saw that
It's
Vernon acted differently, like there was a certain level of decorum that he had to begin with, that would be more shocking. It's still shocking. It's terrible
yeah,
when
I
he's
think what they're doing with Vernon is they're making him representative of, like, quote, unquote, "the
society.
system."
Yeah.
Yeah. And while that is not how schools present themselves today, because schools have real problems today, but the original or older problem is that, I mean, this is a little bit stereotypical or stereotyping, but put bluntly, when you put a bunch of guys with almost unchecked authority in charge of teenagers,
Hmm.
they get anger problems.
Hmm.
And so it's actually not, I don't think, that unusual for people to have this sort of experience with a male teacher at this time. I mean, I think it's pushed to sort of an extreme. I don't think it's necessarily like representative of all the teachers in any way sense of the way, but I do feel like it's one of those things where everyone would have had a teacher like this at some point
Hmm.
growing up in the American public school system. um, and I think that's kind of he's there to represent that part of the school and the system, the thing that's like is totally uninterested in getting to know them, totally uninterested in really taking care of them, just kind of doing what he has to do. And they get into that a little bit at the end where, he's talking about how he kind of feels trapped by it too,
Hmm.
right? And like he also like throws his authority around quite
Hmm.
a bit. He's like, I'm the person in charge here. I make a ton of money. You're not endangering my position. I'm the person they're going to believe, not you. All
Hmm.
that stuff, right? Which, while I do think works as a critique of maybe the system, I do think it kind of hurts what the movie's trying to do. Because not only is it kind of cartoonishly too big, I feel like a school system that is genuinely well, okay, a school system that is interested in trying to be a friend, but completely missing the point, I think would be way more impactful in this setting.
Hmm.
Like, imagine a teacher that's like, you know, this attention is good for you and you're going to thank me one day for it. Someone who it completely flies over their head that what they're doing is not helping at all. Like that kind of role, I think would have been way more impactful because it would have been like it's almost like a discovery when the kids find out that that person is wrong.
Hmm.
It's obvious to us the moment Vernon walks in the door that he's going to be a problem. So it's not a mystery when we find out that he represents a bad, broken system. But if someone walks in and says, with maybe a bit of anger in their voice, like, you guys are being a bunch of idiots, you need to shape up, this is good for you, and genuinely believes that, even though they don't make any effort to like get to know the students, like do all the same things, hang out in the office instead of actually monitoring the kids, do the dumb thing with the door because your authority is being challenged, right? A
Hmm.
lot of the same things still fall into place here. But if our authority figure is telling the students to their face, you need to do this because it's good for you, and then they decide it's not good for them, that's way more of a revolution than just rejecting someone who's being mean to you.
I suppose I think that I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit where that message could also get lost just because there's no version of what he's asking in which it's good for them. Like, and no one I don't think would think that, because like what he's doing is he's wanting to punish them because
Mm-hmm.
he thinks that they've challenged him specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he feels slighted. He feels that this young like it's not even them specifically. It's just children. He wants to punish
Mm-hmm.
children, and that part I don't feel is too cartoonish. And I do, yeah. There's definitely a version where there's a character that is wanting them to do something, and they can get something good out of it. But I think that's a different movie because.
See, I'm not saying that the person, like, this is kind of my point actually.
Mhm.
The teacher authority figure coming to them and saying, "This is good for you. Write this essay. Sit in mind-numbing silence in this room for what is it, 8 hours,
Mhm.
5 hours, 8 hours, I don't
8.
remember. 8. And like, in the same way that like, you know, certain extremes in parenting happen and the parents, like, I've been taught that it's for the good of the kids, but it's like they're so ignorant to the actual needs of their kids that it hurts the kids way more than it would help them learn things.
Mhm.
Like, something that was pretty normal when you and I were growing up, send your kid to bed without dinner. That is like, it connects food security to
Mhm.
approval and all that, right? So it's like psychologically not a sound practice, but the person enacting it didn't have anything evil in mind. They just were feeling upset and felt like you needed to cave to them. Authority, power trip, it's still there. Writing this essay, I think if someone tells you this will be good for you, it's an exploratory essay, figure out who you are. I think there's a place for that. But them deciding that the essay is a bad choice because it would trap them into something is still just as rebellious as what we currently have in this version of the
Mhm.
film. I don't know. I'm not saying we should make the teacher sympathetic.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that at all. The teacher could still be pretty sadistic in this version, but I think the teacher needs to be blind a little bit to what they're doing. Maybe some satisfaction in the negative reactions,
Mm.
but the teacher needs to fully believe in the system in order for them to be representative of the system, I
Mm.
think. And right now, what we have is a guy who's arguably underserved by the system somehow. I don't
Mhm.
totally see how, but like he's clearly not fulfilled, right? And he takes it out on kids, which is an evil, heinous thing to do.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but because he starts in a confrontational way, it is not, I think, in any way shocking, surprising, or really that rebellious for the kids to push back. Like,
Sure.
it's kind of like if someone walked in and said, "I hate you," and you went, "Well, I hate you too." There's
Mm.
nothing revolutionary about that.
I think you could still make an argument that he represents the system because he's broken and the system is broken. For him to
Sure,
believe in the system
sure.
and for him to be effective would go against what the system typically does. Um,
Then they need to use his brokenness as a lesson for the kids, and it's kept private
I
instead,
think
and
I
it's
think
used
his
for the audience.
brokenness is used as a lesson for us. I think this conversation
Yeah.
with Carl is great because I think one of Vernon's issues is he went into a role because he thought he knew who he was, and then he was disappointed.
Hmm.
He's disappointed with everyone else but when it's he's the issue, like Carl points out, it's like you didn't know who you were, and now you blame everybody else. So I think there's still some stuff
Good
to be
point.
taken from Vernon, but I
Hmm.
agree that there's a version of this that could be better with a different approach to it. My
Hmm.
my issue with the cartoonish stuff is like, yeah, everything he does before the one-on-one confrontation with Bender, because that I think is its own moment that I like because of how terrible it is, because it's that's the system not being able to pick up on what Bender's situation is.
Stress.
This guy who's been a teacher
Mhm.
for 22 years can't pick up on an abusive situation. And Bender,
Mhm.
while he totally hates this guy, you see this realization in him that, like, this is another authority figure that I can't
Mhm.
even trust to not hurt me.
Hmm.
And like there's
Hmm.
it's if the actor weren't clearly at least 25, it would be super
I mean,
super
I think it's still
tragic.
pretty
It's still, yeah, it's
startling.
still startling
Yeah.
and it's still
Hmm.
tragic, and it's like the first time that Bender really feels like a kid. It's still slightly thrown off because he's obviously 25, but there is this heartbreaking moment in that, and I just think it would hurt, or it would hit a little bit more if Vernon wasn't so cartoonishly evil the whole time leading up to this. Like
That's a
it's
great point. And I think that's kind of adjacent to what I was saying. Like if he was just sort of like low level irritating and then
mhm.
he turned full on aggressive in that private
Yes, yeah.
confrontation, like that would be way more, I think, of an effective use of the character than what we
Mhm.
currently get. Right now, he's an angry little clown. The
Mhm.
audience doesn't take him seriously.
Mhm.
And I think the audience should take him seriously, at least at first.
I don't know. I'm torn on that as well. I mean, I don't. I think he needs to be less cartoonish in the beginning for sure, so that the one-on-one moment has more impact. But I think there's a certain amount of, I don't know. I don't know. I like that we don't take him seriously at first, because I think if you don't know what this movie is going in, your stereotypical expectations are challenged right away. You're already on his side,
Mm.
and it can be made clear right away that this guy's cartoonishly stupid. And because also I think there is a version, there are some audience members out there for sure, they have to get at least halfway through this movie before they're not on his side because they think they're all hooligans, like, I don't know. But we spent a lot of time
Interesting.
talking about Vernon. If you
I
got
didn't get that idea at all. I think you're right though. Like you're right. The audience wouldn't always get it. I just feel like I don't know. I'm looking for intentionality in this, and while I do think there are a lot of really intentional things, I feel like they almost come as flashes of genius in an overall kind of
Mhm.
messy story.
That's fair. I think he's intentionally cartoonishly evil because the real perspective of this movie is from that of the teenagers.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. Um and I think even though Bender kind of has his little pissing contest for a second with Carl, the way he smiles at him at the end of the movie when they leave, that's a commentary on the system, I think, in its own way. Like, Carl approaches Bender where he's at. He just
Hmm.
responds. He doesn't threaten. He plays with them a little bit, but he's
Hmm.
just another guy, and he just talks to him like a guy.
Still holds him to account, but he also meeting him where he's at's a big part of it, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that Vernon fails to do for any of the students, and how they kind of learn to meet each other,
Mm-hmm.
or at least that's how they're supposed to have come to meet each other. But at the end of the day, I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like we all get there, to be
Yeah.
totally honest.
Should we talk about
We should keep
the?
going though.
Yeah. Should we talk about the kids? You want to spend some time
We
talking
should
about
put
the
the kids
characters?
in the
Okay.
Breakfast Club. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe talk
Yeah.
about the
Let's
main
talk about the
characters a
kids.
little bit.
Let's kind of review the kids for a second. Because story wise, it's fairly straightforward. It's fairly slow, I think, in a good way. It's 8 hours, and we're getting only 2 hours of it. Um, Getting into some of the characters, the story, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. There's some good character moments that we can talk about maybe a little bit later, but there's not really a plot other than it's a day in the library. People get to know each other, so we don't really have to
Sure.
break that down a whole lot.
Hmm.
Who should we start with?
I mean, Bender is screaming,
It's
so
true, so he can go last. Um, Now we can start with Bender. I I'm like 80-20 on Bender.
yeah.
Yeah. In that,
I hmm,
oh, we don't like Bender.
I'm almost entirely for Bender,
Yeah.
except for some misogynistic writing.
Oh, don't even get me started. We'll get into the
Yeah.
complaints. We'll get into the complaints.
Mhm.
There are some aspects of
Mhm.
this movie that's almost 50 years old that did not age well. Um,
Mhm.
we'll get into it. Um, he's got the cool bad boy thing going. He's got
Mhm.
way more darkness and sadness around him than some of the other cliche bad boys and other movies like this.
And I think there's definitely an element of performance with this character. I mean,
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
performance.
Yeah.
But there's also a shocking amount of candor Like
Mm-hmm.
when asked about his home life, he immediately surrenders that information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's something that someone like that, or maybe in general, people would play close to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, you asked? Let me
Yeah.
tell you."
It's
And
he's a
I mean,
hardcore
there's an
cry for
element of
help.
shock and awe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's an element. He kind of likes the attention. He likes the sensation. He likes just getting it off his chest, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's not something that people normally do
Mm-hmm.
when directly confronted about those sorts of things, right? Um, Group of strangers, essentially, and he's like, "Here's my darkest secret."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of, I think, for me, one of the early things that breaks the pattern for him, because he is just kind of generally awful, with a couple of exceptions that start coming in later. But he exists to cause problems for
Yeah.
a lot of the early part of the film.
Uh,
Yeah.
this movie made these days, there'd be more of a genuine attempt and analysis on each of their potential mental health issues.
Hmm.
Because that wasn't as big a thing in 1984, we're not really exploring that. Potential ADHD,
Hmm.
maybe some sort of something or other. Like all of them kind of hint towards it.
Actually, just like they all come from a place of, well, most of them come from a place of insecurity,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
definitely. But
and
like,
that's kind of like a little bit of like just being a teenager.
uh huh.
Obviously, these guys have more going on than that,
Mm-hmm.
but um, it's with Bender, it's, I think, more of a PTSD insecurity kind of thing.
Sure.
He can't trust home, so who can he trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's also seeking connection, but
He
he's
also
really bad at
he
it.
also can't sit still. Like there's a certain
Yeah,
amount of that in there. But like, yeah, like I
true.
it's interesting watching it and seeing him also sacrifice himself for the rest of the kids, even
Hmm.
though he's pissed and hates him. I really get the feeling that he likes Brian, like just in general, because like
Yes,
he's and I
agreed.
think it comes from jealousy of his home life, but I think he likes Brian because he's
Yeah,
so
Brian is one of the
defensive.
first characters he's actually a little bit nicer to. I mean, he's
Hmm.
mean to Brian the first couple of times they
Yeah,
interact, but
he's mean to
Brian is the character he
everybody
kind
that
of
way.
starts
Yeah.
like doing right by
Uh-huh.
pretty soon, you know? Um, Brian was kind of a surprise favorite for me. We'll come back to him,
Mm-hmm.
but the Bender, he's, I don't know, some of it is just kind of like basic crazy emo writing, and then there are some very intentional choices that call that into question.
Yeah.
The parts that I can't get over is his treatment of Claire, and it's so
No.
constant
Yeah.
in the
No.
film.
That has not aged
And
well. Don't love
they
that.
want me to root for them, and I
No.
have never like were I in Claire's position,
Mm-mm.
I would ask to never be in class with
I
that boy ever again.
I think it really hurts Claire's character that they end up seemingly
Yeah,
together at the end of the movie. It's
yeah.
really weird. Um, I don't like that.
And like the idea is that they're supposed to be breaking down walls, but he essentially just berates her until she caves. Is kind
Yeah.
of what it feels like, and
It
that's
yeah.
not. I hate that.
The only and this is not a defense. This is not a defense. The only reason that this isn't like full blown uh like I can't think of the word all of a sudden. Uh like he's not manipulating her, and she's not coerced. That's
Mm,
the word. She's not coerced. They
hmm.
write it that she
Yeah,
seemingly falls
comes
for
to him.
him, which is completely
Hmm.
unbelievable. But like they do not write
Hmm.
the worst version, which is he just goes after her, which they do in Rocky. Since we're just in this era, I want to say that right now. Everyone like
That's a
it's.
good point.
I don't like Rocky and Adrian's love origin story, but that's the whole other marathon. All I'm saying is like it can be worse. It could be so much worse.
Hmm.
The infamous under the table scene. No,
Hmm.
I think in some like on like made for TV versions that's cut. I'm not upset about that at all.
No,
Not
we can lose
necessary.
that.
That's assault.
Hmm.
That's assault.
Hmm.
Straight up. Don't need any of
Hmm.
that. And then the impregnate joke. It's not a joke. Don't like
Yeah.
that, Bender.
Mm-mm.
Not a fan of that.
Mm-mm. And
See?
we open with that,
Hmm.
and I went, okay, maybe my initial
Yep.
impression of this film was not that far off.
Yeah. My thing is where when I give this movie some slack in the areas where it needs some slack, teenage boys are assholes. Fine.
Yes.
That doesn't make Bender's character better to say that he's a teenager. That's fine. That's a note on his character. It weirdly hurts Claire's character that she goes
And I think
down.
it hurts the premise
Yeah, a little bit.
because, like, the premise is that they get to know each other on an honest level,
Mm-hmm.
but she's essentially threatened at every corner
Uh huh.
by this character.
Yeah. I
That's not an
think
honest relationship.
I think the earring scene would almost be interesting slash enough. At the end, without a kiss, without going to him in
Hmm.
the closet room, because like also they make out on her father's car with him in the car. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You don't do
And
that.
there's like no
It's
reaction. There's no
no
parental, like, hey, hey.
like oh my god, just no, just no. Yeah, honestly, if going back to what you said in the beginning about there's some things here that are introduced, maybe explored that maybe aren't fully explored. I feel like Claire is one of them. If we want to segue into Claire, unless you have something
Sure.
else to say about Bender,
Let's do
um,
that.
I think it's important. I think it's good, and I think it's useful to offer the perspective of this different kind of pressure and this lack of a desire to be a part of a world that she's in, the rich, snooty, hoity-toity pretentiousness. But I cannot help but align with Bender's perspective, where like and this is where I need to check myself. I'm aware of this because you shouldn't compare trauma. You shouldn't compare
Mm.
what you're going through. She doesn't feel that her parents love her either. She doesn't feel seen. She doesn't feel understood, and she doesn't feel fulfilled. But like, Bender's abused, and Andrew can't think for himself, and Allison is ignored, and Brian is so
They're
depressed that
just
he's
sold out
suicidal.
sushi.
Like,
And the first time we meet her, her dad's saying, I'm sorry you have detention, hon. There's no way you deserve it.
I know.
You know?
And it's also like
Hmm.
I, yeah. And I have to check myself. You know, I can't. But I think it's for the movie to do more work in illustrating that you don't compare, and if you
Yeah.
do,
And
explore the effects and explore the work. Because all like as
mhm.
gross as it is to say, we can say it because we're old. All of these characters that have things to learn and areas to grow in, they all have it and they all have to do it, and some of them do a little bit more than others in this. I don't think Claire does at all. I think the growth, quote
Mhm.
unquote, is that she allows herself to go down to a
Mhm.
level she thinks
Yeah.
she previously looked down on,
Well,
but now
that's
she's
yeah.
ugh ugh
That's
ugh.
because and that's where I think the real, I mean, obviously the sexual assault and whatnot is a problem, but kind of to a point, kind of what being a girl in high school is like.
Ugh.
You know, like there are casual little moments like that. And I say casual not because they're okay, but because they happen with such frequency
Yeah,
and are moved
yeah.
by so quickly. Like it, being asked in a public setting whether or not you are a virgin
Mm-hmm.
is a form of sort of like bullying. And
Mm-hmm.
she is like berated with this question often. And yet if you refuse to answer that question once in high school, it's gonna follow you because
Mm-hmm.
people want to know. And like there's an element of realism, I think, to that I think if handled with some care could actually be an decent inclusion in what they're trying to do. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supporting those actions, just that it's real and we're trying to be real. So like let's talk about it, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem I have when it comes to like misogyny in the film is in the writing.
Mm-hmm.
They When they're writing Claire, their thought of her is he wouldn't dare be with anyone like Bender because she's too good for Bender. And that's her problem.
Mhm.
According to the script, that's her problem, that she's too good to have sex with someone outside her social circle.
Mhm.
And that is treating her as a sexual object
Mhm.
inherently. That would be her primary character growth arc moment, which is
Mhm.
why she deals with so much sort of confrontation of this, sort of resistance of sex and all that, because she's and the movie even kind of addresses it. She's a prude or whatever, right? Like it's just like there's a trap in that question. She can't answer it
Right.
correctly.
Mhm.
Um, but the film suggests that, her changing her opinion on how she should do that is the solution to her feeling more fulfilled, which basically just says, as I'm writing this script, I am an emo male who wished more pretty girls would have sex with me in high school.
Little bit. Little bit.
And I am bothered by it deeply because unfortunately, our other female character does not go untouched by this as well.
No, I don't honestly don't know which one is worse because
Yeah.
like yeah, what Bender does to Claire is terrible and it's assault. But the way they write Claire makes it that she almost doesn't care. But then Allison,
Mhm.
segue, they fully change her. Like that's the point they're making is that
Mhm.
she has to change her entire appearance and she
Mhm.
doesn't. Like that's
Mhm.
so bad. That's so
I mean,
bad.
it's like for her, she can't have her quote unquote happy ending expiration until she has the interest of
Of a
one of the
guy.
males in the room. And
Yeah.
like, to be fair, he was interested in her before the
You could tell.
reveal,
You could
but it's like
tell.
it's the culmination
Yeah.
of that growing story arc, right? Which means that she had to become that in order. And like on a certain level, I'm not totally against the makeover scene because that's a part of what they're talking about here. Like this fluidity of performance and like who we are. She can look like one of the popular girls given the resources and skills taught to the popular girls.
Mm,
That's a part of fluidity of identity. But the fact they frame it as her happy ending, I
yeah.
think, is the problem,
I
you know?
yeah, I think there is a middle ground as well, and I don't know exactly what it would be because I'm not gonna get in the habit of telling teenage girls what to do with their looks. But Incredibles does something similar, very small. It's just put your hair back a little bit, just so we can see your face. We don't have to
Hmm.
add anything to your face. We don't need to do mascara. We don't need to do blush. We don't need to do whatever. It's just, you know, brush it a little, just a bit, so we can see you sometimes. Like,
I think it's important to note, though, that Allison wasn't just not wearing makeup. She was wearing
oh,
an intentional look.
I know.
And so to change from doing nothing for your appearance or hiding your face to I have a face that I like to present to the world. Here's a new version of that that's nothing like the thing I like to present. And that new thing is somehow better. That's a different conversation, I think. And I think it's very interesting to have when it comes to, again, the performance of these identities that they're talking about. Like she
Mm,
performs this sort of like weird girl shtick and she's actually seems to be pretty aware of the fact that that's what she's doing.
yeah. See
And
the way I interpret it. I'm sorry, I cut you off. You go ahead and finish that. And
no, I like her makeup is a part of that. Her
mm,
wardrobe is a part of that. Her large bag she carries everywhere is a part of that, right? And when she changes, it's part of that, we are all this, we are all that. It's indicating that she could be like that if she wanted to. The problem is that it ends on that note. If it was just like a makeover scene in the middle where maybe they were high and she was like, "Let me
mm,
do your
I
makeup,"
yeah, that could be nice.
like
Yeah.
we could do some things there with that, but because we end on that note, it does again suggest that the ultimate version of her is something that is attractive to a guy, and
Yeah.
that is frustrating.
Yeah. I just the way I interpreted the movie was Bender is a performance. Allison's just weird, which is not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just you don't eat Captain Crunch and sugar sticks on bread and scratch dandruff onto a drawing in the back of the room,
Hmm.
you know, to be performative. She's clearly a
But
kleptomaniac. That's
there is like regardless of like genuineness, she is presenting herself in a way. when the group looks at her, she doesn't mind,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like,
Right.
sure, she's not seeking attention, but she wants herself to be known in a particular way, and she has designed her appearance and her actions
Mm.
to be like that. That's why she interjects in the ways that she does. Yes, she's genuine to who she is. She is just weird, but it's not like she's acting on impulse. She has strategically thought about things. She
Mm.
has a rather intelligent mind behind all of these actions. The only thing that I can see that seems very kind of impulsive and without sort of a logical explanation is the kleptomania. But I think she likes doing that because she gets a power rush from it. And it's not necessarily an addiction as it is just a way for her to be her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose that's true. I don't know. I guess I get kind of lost with Allison sometimes because she is an interesting character, shall we say.
Hmm. It's very bizarre. There are certain things with her that seem strange. But like you said at the beginning, we've met weirder people in high school
Yeah,
than Allison.
easily.
So,
Um, no real segue, but I guess moving on
no,
to, shall we say, Andrew.
sure.
See, there's something about Andrew where I am almost fully 50-50 on Andrew because his emotional trauma is very real. That's real. And
Hmm.
he's so weirdly aware of it as well. Like, yeah, Allison helps him kind of
Hmm.
realize it, but like he's already aware of it. And that's interesting. He seems to be very intelligent. He's not an idiot, which, again, in a lesser movie, he's the jock. He's just stupid.
Right.
He doesn't, not only is he not a cliche high school bully jock guy, he is fairly defensive of everybody.
Hmm.
He does stick
I
up
like
for,
that he takes kind of a protector role
yeah.
in general.
And
Like
it's not,
it's a little bit like he feels he does it because he's supposed to, but it's better than not doing it. So,
for sure. I like that he sticks up for Claire. It is implied it's because they're already loosely friends. Um,
hmm, they
I
run in the same circles,
Yeah,
popular kids and jocks.
for sure. But I like that it's not just words. Like he actually does lay Bender out there
Mm-hmm.
for a second, and if it weren't
Hmm.
for the knife, like he doesn't just talk shit. He can walk the walk as
Hmm.
well. Um,
Hmm.
and I like that
And he's not all
he
talk, like not
yeah
just like he's not all talk in the sense that he's like, I'm going to hit you and then never does. He actually can win
yeah
that fight.
exactly. He talks
That's
the
something good
talk
too.
and he walks the walk, which is great. Um, he's not overly antagonistic. He doesn't really pick, but I think of the things that each of those kids are in detention for, his is the worst because he was
Yeah.
a full-on bully. He assaulted a kid that resulted in
Hmm.
injury, and his reflection on it
Hmm.
is fantastic. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
It's great. The self-actualization, the awareness, the empathy for a teenager, if you want to get into the fictional aspect of this movie,
Hmm.
is phenomenal. But like that character's not in this movie, that whatever his name is, the kid that he taped the buns to. And I don't know, like there's something about that. Like Bender is the chaos junkie. All he did was pull a fire alarm. Allison's there because she's bored and has nowhere else to go. Claire skipped school, which is fucking stupid.
Hmm.
And Brian accidentally set off a bomb in his locker because he was trying to commit suicide. But Andrew assaulted another kid. And
Hmm.
not only like if we allow for a second the Allison transformation and Claire's descent into madness just for a second, we end on this weird, we all know ourselves, we're all equals, we all have our trauma, we all are healing, whatever. But like, I don't know, Andrew. I kind of feel like you could do some community service. You could visit the kid if he's at, like, and like, they reference that Brian knows this kid. They don't go beyond
Hmm.
that. We don't really get into if this kid's in physics club or if he's Brian's friend, if he's his neighbor, anything. But like, we gloss over that real quick, and then we even make jokes that the only thing that Andrew could do is tape everyone's buns together. But like, oh, I kind of think we should talk about that a little bit more. Like, no one even calls him out on it. No one's like, I'm here because I went shopping because my trauma,
Mm,
sorry, Claire, is that I don't want to be at school because I might feel too much pressure to be around my hoity-toity friends. You tackled a kid who was naked at the
hmm
time and taped his butt cheeks together, and then it pulled some skin off. When like that's, dude. And
hmm
like I understand,
Yeah, it's
like
sorry, go ahead.
it's almost too intense for what he is, because he is this seemingly smart, empathetic, level-headed character that just can't think for himself. So like him being peer pressured by his team into doing something stupid, the whole I jump off a bridge, you jump off a bridge, but a dumb example of it, I think would work better for him, because instead his whole I just thought about what my dad would want me to do, and so I assaulted a kid out of nowhere. Like, that seems a bit much. Just seems like a bit much, and I think it hurts his character in that I cannot, in good conscience, give him a pass. Whereas everyone else, there's way more of an empathetic approach to it. Even Claire, but like Andrew's stuff is empathetic only to a point. And I think that's a little bit rough because of where we're supposed to end. We don't end with shunning of Andrew. We don't end with the healing of Andrew. We just end with, I am aware I did something bad. And is that enough? Question mark. Like,
I think that's kind of the point of the character, though. Like the two things. Obviously, assault is bad, and this kid is like in pain because of what Andrew did. And the movie recognizes it as bad at the same time that they do kind of make light of it. And that's where I was drawing on like the teenage realism of it all. To tape someone's butt cheeks together is something teenagers are going to make jokes about. Honestly, it doesn't matter if the kid died. Teenagers are going to make jokes about that.
oh,
It
okay.
really
I was like,
doesn't.
whoa, where are we
Um,
going with that? But yeah, okay.
like, like they're gonna make jokes about it, and so like I wasn't actually super bothered by that. I do feel like it's insensitive. I do feel like as a teacher, you wouldn't want to shut that down. But there's like we're not trying to be rose-colored glasses about these kids and their intentions and all that right now. We're trying to be real. So that's kind of my thoughts on the joke. And then when it comes to like the bullying element and what it does for Andrew's character, I'm not going to necessarily say that you should give him a pass because that is fully aggressive behavior that is a problem, especially since it is not something that he really wanted to do for any particular good reason. He just felt like he was supposed to, so he did. Like there's something to critique there. That's a problem that we don't really directly address. But I think what's interesting about him is, unlike the other characters, he comes in already critical of himself for his actions.
Mm-hmm.
He takes up this protector role, and you can kind of see guilt manifesting in that a little bit because the last time he let someone get picked on, he was the person that seriously hurt someone. And I think like when he gives his little speech, the reason he's the most sort of introspective about it, the reason he suddenly appears to have a whole bunch of like emotional intelligence is because he's already thought through why he did it, why he's upset about it,
Mm-hmm.
and why he doesn't want to do it again. And he's deeply concerned about the fact that I didn't even want to do it. I just
Mm-hmm.
thought my dad would want me to do it, so I did that. And that's like not okay. It's clearly not okay to him that that was the motive behind his actions. So he comes in already kind of questioning the authorities that told him to be a certain thing and the consequences of the actions of the thing that he did. Like he already knows that he was the problem and he's looking for a way to become better, I think. Now, the movie doesn't ever actually give him an opportunity to do that,
Yeah.
which is perhaps a problem of the movie. But I don't. You know what? That is a fair critique. That bothers me about Andrew's character that he doesn't get a chance to actually kind of address that
Yeah.
problem.
I and I'm
The other
still
characters do.
Yeah. I still think there's
hmm
things you could have. I think they don't explicitly say this, but it is unfortunate. Like, the one thing he chooses to do that he thinks of himself is this assault. Like, that's the one thing
Mhm.
you could think of. And I just, and maybe it's because of, a change in times, but I think there's a version of it that could still work where, oh, I threw a peanut butter sandwich at this kid. I didn't know he was allergic. Like, there being this level of unintended outcome because you couldn't
I
think
think
about
it
it.
has to be violent. I think
I
it
don't.
has to be violent because the commentary on a jock character is that they are all might and no brains, and they can be
Mm,
easily taken advantage of, and they do physically damaging things because they can't think through the consequences of them. If it's not physically violent, I don't think it's a complete character arc or a complete examination of his stereotype.
I suppose it feels strange that he is the one who seems to be the most remorseful of the thing he did while in detention, but there's no growth from it. There's no progress from. There's nothing is done to amend it. It's so intense
And that
compared to what
may
the others
be
did.
because this film is so obviously written by guys
Man,
who looked back on their high school
okay.
days and decided to try and be deep. Like,
Well, okay, fair enough.
like the flaws in this film consistently come back to it's an unexamined male perspective.
Yeah, I guess I think there's untapped potential with Andrew and Bender, especially in the lunch scene, because it's made very clear that Bender doesn't have any food, but Andrew has an
That's true.
excessive amount. And they joke about how their dads would be
Hmm.
friends. Like, well, maybe you guys could be friends, you know? But we
Well,
have,
I mean, there is an element of like Claire and Andrew have to treat Bender like he's nothing at the beginning. Otherwise, the audience doesn't get the idea that Bender is treated like he's a
yeah,
disposable object rather than a
for
person,
sure,
you know?
yeah. The antagonism between Andrew and Bender in the beginning makes sense and is good, and I like it. I think there's the end of the movie I love so much until the Allison transformation and the Claire descent, because all of them sitting
Mhm.
there and talking
Mhm.
and getting into it, like, that's lovely. Long scenes, uninterrupted dialogue. It's
Mhm.
real chill. It's all just raw and honest, and it's amazing. And then instead of some sort of Andrew and Brian are now going to be friends. Andrew and Bender are now going to be friends. Andrew and Allison maybe have had a thing that weren't talking about. Now it's just, yeah, he's attracted to her because Claire made her pretty. Like, I think
Mhm.
there's this weird, the only one who seems to come out changed for the better, shall we say, because there was some sort of growth, is segue Brian, because
Mhm.
Allison goes into it already weird. She comes out of it weird but
Mhm.
pretty. Andrew goes into it supposedly, like we said, already knowing that what he did was wrong. And maybe he won't
Mhm.
ignore everyone else because he's now attracted to and dating one of the weirdos. Let's see how long that lasts when the week starts.
Mhm.
Bender, the only thing that's different is that he has friends, maybe, but he also already had friends. He just didn't have these friends. Like,
Mhm.
if you turn the aggression down on Bender a smidge, he's already one of the most empathetic. He understands all these different
Mhm.
perspectives because he knows that people look down on him. But then Brian, he goes into it in a certain amount of denial, I think. And
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
he, through this day and the conversations, he's able to confront it a little bit more. He realizes a certain amount of courage he has, maybe that the others don't, and how
Mhm.
he would acknowledge them as friends where they won't acknowledge him. And he's this, squirrely little
Mhm.
nerd, but he can do this thing that the others can't. And he says out loud, he confronts the fact that he was considering suicide. And while his thing at first is portrayed similarly to Claire's in that it's not a huge deal, it aligns way easier, I think, with Andrew's thing, the pressure of it, the
Mhm.
unending pressure. I honestly wish the conversation between him and Bender regarding idiots taking shop went on a little bit longer. I wish Allison or Claire, whoever it was, doesn't try to break that tension. Like they go into
Mhm.
joking, but like Bender could have pointed out more realistically, less bullyingly, that you assumed this was going to be something stupid, and like you learned something from it. Like there's different kinds of
Mhm.
intelligence. Like like there's something to that. But he goes in as the most tame and the most unaffected, but I would argue his was the darkest of all of them because of the place
Mhm.
he was in. Like, yes, Bender is being abused. He's also possibly a sexual predator. And Allison is being fully neglected. And Claire is, not like tagline of Breakfast Club: parents suck. Yes, we get it. But like
Yeah.
Brian was going through something that no one was there for, no one was aware of, and the amount of pressure he's under led to that. And I don't think that was explored
Mhm.
enough. But he comes out because
Well,
he writes the essay seemingly fully realized and grown from it. And he comes out with that courage, like I said, which I really, really like.
I feel like it's important to acknowledge the approval seeking behavior that Brian demonstrates
True.
in the beginning
True.
part of the film because like he obviously he's our smart kid, right? And I actually like you mentioned earlier, I really appreciate that he doesn't necessarily look like your cartoonish dweeb, right?
Yeah.
He just kind of looks like a skinny kid. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get to know him a little better and you're like, oh, that's the nerd. And then you get to know him better and you're like, oh, he's more than that. But it's like he comes in and he's the teacher's pet in class. His hand is always raised. He's always got a follow-up question because he wants to know. And he's not messing around. He genuinely wants to know and he wants you to know that he's looking for answers because
Mm-hmm.
that's how he's gotten positive attention in his life. And I think the suggestion is that he puts that pressure on himself. Like we don't really see a whole lot. There's some family pressure. Um, but we don't really see a whole lot in terms of reasons why Brian would be seeking these guys' approval. Like he knows them as well, there's the popular kids and the jock. Maybe you want that guy's approval. But he kind of like also immediately takes to Bender and doesn't, really at any point disrespect or dislike Allison. He's just looking for someone to like him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how that develops because he starts by just sort of like doing kind of what he's told to do, but it leads into a sort of positive relationship with the rest of them that allows him to explore things he hadn't thought of before. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's nervous about having the weed on him,
Mm-hmm.
but he's one of the
I
first
know.
to say,
See,
I want to smoke.
yeah, I don't think it's other than Vernon. I don't think it's looking for approval, and I do think the home pressure, like he's putting part of it on himself, yes, because he's a kid and doesn't realize he has autonomy. I think with the way his mother
Hmm.
speaks to him, the pressure comes from home, and I think he and Bender have a duality thing where Bender likes Brian because Bender sees a kid that is loved by his family, but
Hmm.
Brian likes Bender because he sees someone who is free. He sees someone who does what he wants
Hmm.
to do and has no pressure because neither one of them knows. Like
Hmm.
that, there's the commentary also, other than parents suck, is you don't know what's going on in someone's life. That's the better
Hmm.
tagline for the Breakfast Club.
That's the better tagline.
But
Yeah.
that's why I think he takes to Bender so quickly. Is because Bender is what Brian wants to be to a certain extent, and Brian is what Bender desperately needs. And there's just something.
Hmm.
I think there's something there.
I also really enjoyed Brian and Andrew's interactions. They seemed to
Mm-hmm.
have a sort of like mutual understanding. And at a certain point, they almost seemed like kind of buddy buddy
Mm-hmm.
for a couple interactions. I can't remember specifically what I was noticing. I was just sort of like there's a kind of connection between the two of them that I think came from they both genuinely want I think, the best for the people around them. Like if there
Mhm.
are two people in the room who are going to take care of the others, it's Andrew and Brian. Maybe their motivations aren't always great. Maybe they're not perfect at doing that. But I think if it came to like trying to give someone a caretaker role, those two are the two that would be up for it. Um, Bender's self-sacrifice not included. He doesn't care, so I don't really know if that counts too much as like a big self-sacrifice. Um, and I think that's I don't know, I think Brian is an interesting little character because he walks in so straight-laced, but he does not hesitate to go smoke.
Mhm.
He's very emotionally vulnerable in
Mhm.
the circle when they're talking with each other.
Mhm.
This is something, for it being very male perspective, he cries and no
Yeah.
one gives him crap for it.
Yeah. Same with
Like
Andrew. They both do.
that's big.
Yeah.
hmm And these are two male characters who are crying when our female characters who have cried a couple times mostly just cried because they're like stressed. Like
Mhm.
this is a cry because you won't be friends with me.
Mhm.
And no one makes fun of him
Yeah.
for it. That's kind of amazing,
Mhm.
actually. So small little props there for
Indeed.
that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of at our
I don't
time.
know.
There's a handful of other little things I would have liked to talk about. But like to sum up, I guess the weed scene is weird, mostly in a good way. Um, but
hmm
the dancing and the all over the placeness of what they're doing while they're trash the library, whatever, sure. I really
I do
like,
think dancing after confessions like that is a
yeah,
really good sort of psychological
that
catharsis.
was
Like
fun.
we've now bonded
Uh
and so
huh.
we dance, right? Like I do like that. I That's like the only transition in this film that makes a ton of sense to
Yeah.
me. Some of the other stuff just sort of randomly jumps around.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
But no, I like that, and I like that end scene where they all are sharing and stuff. I just think there's plenty more that could have come from it. I think that scene should have gone on longer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hate what they do to Allison in the end. It's just because there's lots of different ways you could portray that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the other thing about this, I cannot help but laugh, is the little nerdy dude who was self-conscious about the fact that he was a virgin is the only one who's not going to get some, at the end of the month, because everyone else is hooking up now. Like, you didn't have to do that. There were no couples that went into this detention. It should have been no couples leaving. There should have been this Scooby-Doo
Mm-hmm.
gang growth where they all became friends for different reasons and they were all there for them in different ways. But no, Bender and Claire are getting together, and Allison and Andrew are getting together, and Brian is left there to write the essay, as if that's some sort of big honor. Bitch, please.
If that doesn't sum up high school for you.
Well,
Um,
okay, sure, but
Do our
like,
homework while we go party.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
I'm not
but
saying
like,
that you should move around any of those couples either. I honestly wish they all ended,
mhm.
none of them together. You could hint that a character
Well, I
like
feel
Andrew
like
and a character like
you
Allison maybe have the beginnings of a flirtatious thing, but like they're really weirdly making out in the street. Like, you basically just met. Like, this is weird.
I think you are attributing more of a long-term consequence to this event than
Mm,
I am.
mm,
I fully believe Claire when she says that they will not like they'll say hi to each other in the
oh,
hallway, but they won't be friends.
tragic.
I like maybe they will go about their own personal lives with a greater perspective and like they've kind of changed as people, but I don't think we're supposed to think of them as like the new clique of the school. Like at
Sure,
best, they're nice to each other in the hallways, is
yeah,
my take.
but like the weird thing about that though is Claire and Andrew are friends, and now Claire and John Bender are dating, and Andrew and Allison are dating. So 4 of the 5 are now gonna be loosely running in the same circle, except for poor Brian, if Claire is to be believed,
Oh,
and no one brings him in. The only one who said that they would acknowledge him was Allison, but Bender also said that Claire was a bitch for not doing that. So maybe that implies that those two characters will keep Brian in the mix. I'm just is weird is all, okay? It's just weird. I feel like Brian's left in the dust.
I don't like this. I don't like the idea that Claire and Bender are dating.
They're
I
so
mean,
dating.
obviously they like make out in the car,
She
but like,
gives him an earring.
yeah, but like that could also just be a memento.
Oh, come on. You know. She
I
likes the
think
bad
like,
boys.
okay, the film ends in this hopeful note with the kisses because it makes better money that way. But if the film were honest to its sort of the moment idea and thesis, it would not have a change on the way that they interact with each other. It would not make them bonded friends. It would make them open their eyes to the reality of the world. But not everybody who changes your life in high school is a part of your permanent circle.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you just have a really weird conversation with somebody and then you move on with your life. And I
Sure.
think this movie is far more effective as a moment in time rather than the starting place of like a revolution for the school. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I reject your reality and substitute my own because I don't like that version of it. I like the idea that something comes from it. Because I like Brian's point.
Sure.
Because if they don't acknowledge each
Hmm.
other, if they do what Claire says, I don't think there's any growth. And I think a part of this movie is them growing and changing because that's also a part of high school. I
I think if they were given and I'm going to use Stranger Things as an example. I know you haven't seen it, sorry, but Stranger Things is a very similar sort of dynamic where a bunch of very disparate people end up in the same group because of a circumstance. But the reason they stay bonded is because they fought monsters together, and they're the only ones that know the secret monsters of the town are happening. These guys don't have any reason to be bonded together. I don't
fair.
think they stay friends.
Well,
I
I
think they
think
might be nice to each other. I think they are more forgiving to other people in that group now. But I don't think that they are like the new Scooby Doo gang.
to an extent, sure, but also I don't think you give yourself a literal Scooby Doo gang name if you don't at least hope for or intend to continue to
I
be
am very
friends.
confused by the title. I am.
It's
I don't
it's
understand why they're the Breakfast Club.
one of the I don't remember if it's the director or one of the writers. One of their kids who was in detention. Detention starts so early in the morning that's what they called themselves. It's based on a real thing.
Then they should have had breakfast.
They should have. So I
Like
don't
it's not
know.
that hard.
I reject your Claire's right and that they won't acknowledge each other because I also there is if I allow myself to think into the future of this little world, if what we're presented with is to be believed, Allison goes to detention because she has nothing better to do. Bender's going to be in detention for the next 2 months, while Allison is dating, potentially, more than likely, Andrew, and Andrew does have a meet the one Saturday. If Allison goes, it's possible that Andrew will go just to be with Allison. And then if they go, because Brian wants to be with them, he may go. And now there's this new version, potentially, of peer pressure that could encourage Claire to go, where they're all just there doing stupid nothingness just to be with Bender because of this weird little trauma they started.
As whimsical as that is, I think you've already brought up the reason why it wouldn't happen.
Because
Like Andrew
Allison
is
has
gonna
something else
go
to
to those
do.
meets, and
Well,
Claire is gonna go shopping with her friends,
mm,
and like Bender and Allison might be there, sure. I don't think Brian's gonna willingly show up to detention though.
what else does Brian have to do?
You know, had a lot of clubs. Doesn't seem like they happen on the
True.
weekends, but
I don't know. I'm
I don't
glad there's no
know. It's
Breakfast
like
Club 2, but I like to think that they
mhm.
stayed friends.
I see them as friendly acquaintances, kind of at best.
How dare you?
I
Well,
know.
anyway, we are past our time for the Breakfast Club. I'm giving it a whale. I think there are issues, and things that did not age well, but the essence of this movie I think is very genuine, and I like it.
I respect what they were trying to do, but I don't think I can give it a whale because
Mm,
I just don't feel, I guess, comfortable watching it.
that's fair. Is that because of Bender?
It's because of the way that Claire is written. It's not even
Mm.
really Bender. Like I talked about, like Bender's actions, while despicable, are essentially like things that do happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way that Claire responds to them, and
Yeah.
like this whole movie is telling me that if I want connection, I have to be cool with that, and
Yeah.
I'm not cool with that.
That's fair. There's probably a real world stuff that I should consider more and giving it a whale or not. I will
I'm
reflect on
not
that.
saying that you're wrong to doing it. It's just as I watched it in high school, and I know that's when a lot of people really attached to it, but I had problems with it in high school that I don't think I could articulate. And now that I've watched it again,
That's fair.
I think I was picking up on the sort of violence in that, and
Yeah.
I was not okay with it. So,
I first watched this a
yeah.
couple of years ago, so I watched it through the lens of these are kids, and like I can relate
Hmm.
to some of the pressure, some of the trauma, and also the growth. That's the next step. Like I'm more in the position of Carl now than any of the kids.
Yeah, but this is if you and this is maybe it is me reflecting too much because I know plenty of girls or women who like this film, but if you're watching this and you're a girl in high school and you come from the general perspective of Claire, because you either get Claire or you get Allison,
That's true. I
um,
did not consider that enough.
as a girl, and like even if I were Brian, but Brian was a girl, I would still be dealing with that.
Hmm.
And like the I think it is essential for this film to honestly and correctly address the sexual element of their relationships because of the romantic interest inherently present in high schools. And I am deeply uncomfortable with the film's ending on that note. And especially since a lot of teenagers use this film as some sort of blueprint for how they understand people, I just
That's
don't like it.
that's fair. I may need to watch it again and keep track of that a little bit more. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, on that note, next week is the Goonies.
Sorry.
That's fine. It's not wrong to bring up at all. It's just I guess,
It's such a killjoy
but it's
point.
but it's a good
I
point.
don't like
It's a
being this way.
it's a good point though. Like truly, I'm not upset that you brought it up. And like
Hmm.
I was aware that it was problematic, but I guess I did not think enough that there's no good girl perspective in this movie at all. I was looking at best, I was just looking at it at different kinds of trauma and pressure. I wasn't considering the boy or
Hmm.
girl thing at all. But like that's when you're a teenager in high school, you're not thinking like that. So that's a good point. I think if you were to reboot this today, which I'm not saying you should, but I think it's one you could. I'd
I
want
think you could improve it. I really do.
for sure. I'd want it 3 and
Hmm.
3. I'd want it even, not so that everyone gets a couple. I don't want any
Yeah.
couples, but I want 3 and 3.
I think if the goal is to fully examine the complex dynamics of teenagers in high school as a sort of microcosm for society, like they're
Hmm.
representative of larger society, but they are very much teenagers, and that's essential to the story.
Hmm.
I think you're right. I think it does need to be dead even so that we can fully
Yeah,
explore the dynamics. And I think we need to have more alternate things going on
yeah.
too, like maybe a non-binary
I was gonna say we
person,
need a little spice.
or
There's a
yeah,
lot of
we
mayonnaise
need.
in this movie. I
Mhm.
mean, not I can't critique the
We
movie
need
for
some
that because it's from the
diversity.
80s. Yeah.
Like
Well,
it's from
it's
the 80s, but like it's
it's
Chicago.
Chicago. But see, it's not subtle. The modern day reboot of this is just the Power Rangers movie.
Yes, or Lemonade Club if you want to be fun with it.
Lemonade Mouth. Come on.
Mouth. Sorry,
Yeah.
gosh, Breakfast Club got in the way there.
Yeah. But
Lemonade Mouth.
I
If
mean
you
like
like the
Lemonade,
soft Disney version of
yeah.
Breakfast Club is 100% Lemonade Mouth, and
Yeah.
then like the weird Power Rangers is essentially the
Power
same.
Rangers is. They meet in
Yeah,
detention. We got
yeah.
the young black man who's autistic. We have the Asian guy who's got a sick mom. We have a lesbian. We've got all of it. All of it. We got all of it.
Hmm.
So yeah, and we'll watch that movie one day if we want to do Breakfast Club 2. But otherwise, we're done now. We're at an hour and 15 minutes for the fucking
We're
Breakfast Club.
out.
We're done. Bye everybody.